It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Friday, March 20th. I'm Mac Watson. Some lawmakers say the legislature didn't ask voters to settle whether abortion is health care. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports lawmakers claim it's because they fear the pro-abortion lobby would flood Wyoming with out-of-state money.
I think most people went into this year's legislative session thinking that an abortion amendment proposition would come out of it, would head for the ballot this fall and ask voters, do you want to codify this right? And that didn't happen. So I talked to some lawmakers who said, yeah, but you got to really amp up for that because other states have had lots of out-of-state money come in when they have this ballot question, and then all of this public messaging starts and they end up with that right codified instead of reversed.
Changing the Wyoming Constitution would take a 2/3 majority in both the House and Senate, then a majority vote by the people at the next general election, which is November 3rd of this year. Without cold winter temperatures to keep them subdued, Wyoming's summer could be dominated by bugs. Lots of bugs. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that one entomologist says prepare for more flies and mosquitoes.
Wyoming's winter has a direct impact on the life cycle of insects. And now that we've had an abnormally warm winter, that could lead to a much more buggy summer with swarms of insects. But the ones that are going to thrive in those conditions are the ones that people don't like. It's too early to say whether we're going to have swarms of insects this summer, but the conditions are already set up for a lot of insects to thrive, as it wasn't that cold this winter. So a lot of insects that would have stayed dormant or suppressed during the colder months are already active and out and about. You're going to see more filth flies, and you could see more mosquitoes.
University of Wyoming Extension's entomologist Scott Schell tells Cowboy State Daily that the earlier mosquitoes hatch could lead to a higher transmission of West Nile virus, which can affect livestock and humans. Police say the former CEO for the Saratoga Chamber of Commerce admitted that she wrote herself more than $77,000 worth of checks drawn on the chamber account. Cowboy State Daily's Greg Johnson reports that Amanda Notwell's case was elevated to felony court on Wednesday.
Anything over $1,000 is felony, so $77,000 is more than that. What's interesting is that the police chief did his accounting from the bank records and came to an amount a little over $77,000. When he asked the former chamber president how much she thought, she pulled out a spreadsheet. So apparently she had anticipated figuring this out. She pulled out a spreadsheet and gave him a number that was only $25 off from what he had found.
Now, if convicted on the single charge of felony theft, Notwell could face up to 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000 or both. Bar None's mayor said it was sleazy that a Reed Reisner defamation lawsuit was served against a councilman during a public meeting on Tuesday. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports the mayor said it was probably the lowest thing he's ever seen in his life.
So Mayor Peter Boyer told me I'd never seen anything worse. That was on the hyperbolic side, but he still reiterated his point that he found it sleazy. He said those council meetings are for the business of Bar None, not for someone to serve a civil suit on one of the council members. Sobrowski's next step is he can file a motion to dismiss if he believes that the evidence pled doesn't uphold the legal mechanisms that are also alleged. And then if the judge isn't swayed and keeps the case alive after that, then they would exchange evidence. And if the evidence then doesn't support the claims, then he can file a motion for summary judgment.
Bar None Town Councilman Dan Sobrowski was sitting in a public council meeting on Tuesday when a man served him with a defamation lawsuit from Wyoming congressional candidate Reed Reisner during the public participation part of the meeting. That's according to a video of the incident and an interview Sobrowski gave to Cowboy State Daily. I'll be back with more news from Cowboy State Daily right after this.
Out here, everything takes longer. The miles in between teach patience. They teach you what's worth driving for. In Wyoming, miles are how we measure love. The distance you'll go to help a neighbor, to pick up your kid from an activity, or to visit someone you care about. That's why Hilltop Bank rides with you through every mile. We're not just close by, we're traveling the same roads. Hilltop Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Cowboy State Daily News continues now. According to a report to the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission earlier this week, there were more than 6,000 human grizzly conflicts in Wyoming from 1982 to 2025. Outdoors reporter Mark Hines reports that neither attack last year resulted in life-threatening injuries.
The Game and Fish Commission sat down for a meeting in Torrington, and the Game and Fish Department's large carnivore section gave their yearly report. Some pretty interesting things. Conflict has to involve like an actual attack on a human, actual attack on livestock, human illegally killing a large carnivore, or a carnivore causing significant property damage. So all told, there were more than 6,000 of those sorts of things involving grizzly bears between 82 and 2025. And then in 2025, I think there were around 220.
Brian DeBolt, Game and Fish Large Carnivore Conflict Coordinator, told the commission that conflicts are defined as incidents involving human injury or death, the illegal killing of predators, agricultural damage, loss of livestock, and property damage. A family who moved to Powell in 2025 with their 4 dogs are pleading to the city council to reconsider an ordinance that allows only 2 pets per residence. Cowboy State Daily's Kate Meadows reports that they vow not to take the 2 dogs to the shelter.
The ordinance is that the city of Powell allows only 2 pets per resident. So not 2 dogs, not 2 cats, 2 pets per household. They have 4. So the question becomes, what do they do with their dogs if they can't legally have them in town? So the Pittmans went to the Powell City Council meeting earlier this month and basically pleaded with the city council to let them keep their dogs. And their plea included asking the city council to extend the ordinance to allow for up to 4 pets. The city council unanimously voted to send the consideration to the city's planning and zoning committee, and that committee will review it on March 30th.
Mayor John Wetzel tells Cowboy State Daily that whenever you start talking about people's pets, there's always emotions involved. Representative Rachel Rodriguez Williams has entered the race for Wyoming Secretary of State. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that the representative supports Chuck Gray's conservative platform, but says she'll collaborate well with clerks.
She certainly aligns ideologically with Chuck Gray. She said that was a fair characterization. He was in the Freedom Caucus when he was a lawmaker. She chairs it now. You're going to see, a lot of emphasis on election security, reform, that kind of thing. So she said, yeah, I align ideologically with him, but my leadership style is a little different. She talked about working with different personalities. She talked about her work in nonprofits, her willingness to listen.
Robert Short is also vying for the GOP nomination, and Brian McCarty's running as a Democrat for the Wyoming Secretary of State position. A Wyoming fish hatchery is expected to churn out well over 1 million walleye per year, and anglers are excited. Outdoors reporter Mark Hines reports that the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission on Wednesday approved putting over $9 million toward a massive upgrade of the Dan Spees fish hatchery near Casper.
The Game and Fish Commission, that's the commission that has oversight over the department, approved the last roughly $9.5 million of that budget. They went ahead and said, okay, here's your $9.5 million to get up to budget so that project can get underway. So they're hoping to start construction in September and start turning out fish in April of 2028. And I talked to a couple of walleye fit haddocks here in Wyoming, and they're stoked.
The total estimated budget for the project is roughly $25 million, and construction is set to begin in September and end in October 2027. The upgraded facility is scheduled to begin hatching its first walleye fry in April of 2028. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting that daily newsletter button at cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel or listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for watching. I'm Mac Watson for Cowboy State Daily.